When the door slammed, the sound echoed through the whole building. After a brief silence, laughter started up again, drinks clinked together, and boots hit the wooden floor hard. But in that cramped corner of the back room, there was another world. A world you couldn't see, but you couldn't escape either. Behind the curtain, Lena was looking at her pale reflection in the mirror. Her lips were cracked. She was breathing in short, shaky gasps. The blood she'd just coughed up into her handkerchief 5 minutes ago was still in her palm. And tonight, she had to work again. Because saying, "I'm tired," was just an excuse. Because saying, "I'm sick," meant getting beaten. But tonight, something was different. No one knew what was about to happen to Lena. Not her, not the angry customer pacing behind the door, not the stranger sitting quietly in the corner. It was like only the wind knew. It banged against the windows, rattled the walls, trying to whisper the dark secrets inside to the world outside. Late again, the man yelled, throwing his whiskey glass at the wall as he jumped up. "I paid for this woman. Where is she?" Genevieve, the head of the girls, said Lena's name with a sneer. Lena, yeah, she always has an excuse. One day she's dizzy, the next she's got a fever. Maybe she shouldn't be allowed to breathe for free anymore. Right then, Lena's knees buckled. Her legs refused to hold her up. Every breath felt as heavy as blood. But she didn't scream. She'd learned. Silence meant less beating, less humiliation, sometimes less dying. When the curtain opened, everything went black. Genevieve grabbed her by the hair and yanked her to the floor. "Get up, or I'll drag you out there myself." Just then, a shadow quietly stepped in between them. He was firm, but not abrupt, like a part of the scene that didn't belong, but whose absence had been felt for way too long. The man was tall, his face roughened by the wind. He wore a black coat. He took his hands out of his pockets and put a wad of cash on the table. "Is this enough for her?" he asked. Genevieve stared at him in shock. "What are you doing?" "I'm taking her," Caleb said. He wasn't shouting or begging, but there was something in his voice that made everyone stop talking. The music stopped. The laughter was cut off like a knife. No one said a word. Lena couldn't lift her head. She was too weak. As her eyelids fluttered open, all she could see were Caleb's hands. They were warm, strong, real. He picked her up off the floor. She was carried like a dead body, but in Caleb's eyes, Lena was still a person. Maybe, for the first time in years, that's how she felt too. The door creaked open. The wind hit Lena's body, but Caleb held her tight. They didn't look at each other. No tears were shed, but something happened. And after that night, Lena, she knew nothing would ever be the same again. The wind was still howling like crazy. The snow seemed to rise up from the ground instead of falling from the sky. With every step, they were sinking deeper and deeper into a silent white. Lying across Caleb's horse, wrapped in an old blanket, Lena kept drifting in and out of consciousness, waking up every now and then with a harsh, rattling breath. Every time she managed to open her eyes, she saw the man shielding her face from the wind. His eyes weren't on the road, they were on her, but in a way that made it seem like he was paying attention to something else entirely. Like with every breath he was making a decision, remembering a promise, carrying some kind of guilt. "Where are you taking me?" Lena whispered, her voice rough and weak. "Somewhere far," Caleb said. "A place where nobody can hear a thing." "So, will I have a voice there?" He didn't answer. Maybe he couldn't. An hour passed, then another. Finally, they reached a sheltered hillside in the woods, away from the wind. There was a small cabin made of heavy logs. One corner of the roof had caved in, but a thin stream of smoke was coming from the chimney. There was life inside, or what was left of it. Caleb stopped the horse. Silence. An unusual kind of tense silence hung in the air. Every step on the snow echoed right back at them. Caleb carefully lifted Lena into his arms and pushed the door open with his shoulder. The wood creaked. Inside, there was a cold kind of peace. It felt like nobody had spoken in years, just existed. Quietly, he laid her down on an old bed. He poked at the fire, not getting up from his seat, and kept an eye on Lena from the corner of his eye. "Isn't there anyone here?" Lena asked. "Not anymore." Suddenly, a creak behind the door. Caleb immediately reached inside his coat. His eyes went ice cold and sharp, but the only thing outside was the wind playing tricks. "Maybe." Lena shivered. "Is someone following us?" Caleb didn't answer. Instead, he got up and checked all the windows in the cabin. Then he took an old rifle off the wall. He blew the dust off it. It hadn't been touched in years, but he held it like it still worked. Right then, Lena passed out again. This time, she didn't open her eyes for a long while. Caleb sat down by her side. He watched her for a long time. Then he pulled a wrinkled, burned-edged photo from his pocket. There was a young woman in the picture. Her eyes were full of light. Next to her stood a young Caleb. But he wasn't smiling. Just like now. He never smiled. He folded the photo back up and put it away. Then he turned his ear toward the outside. Footsteps. But not on the snow. Over by the barn. Someone was there. Close. Really close. Caleb quietly stood up. He moved toward the door without making a sound. His finger was on the trigger. His eyes were cloudy but alert. Just outside the cabin, behind a tree, a shadow moved. Then stopped. And in the darkness, only these words were heard. "Give her to me, or I'll take all of you." Caleb narrowed his eyes. He lifted his gun a bit higher. But he didn't pull the trigger. Because that voice, it sounded familiar. Like an echo from a life he'd left far behind. And this was just the first taste of a storm that had started in silence. They didn't speak at all through the night. Lena's fever kept going up and down, and Caleb never left the window with his rifle. Sometimes it looked like he was closing his eyes, but really, he was just listening. Not just to the wind. There were other sounds out there, too. Like silent footsteps. Like waiting breaths. Like ghosts trapped under the weight of time. Morning came with a gray light. The sky was still white, but hazy. The snow had stopped. But that didn't mean the storm was over. It was just waiting. Caleb sat by Lena's bedside in silence. He was watching her this closely for the first time. The line between her eyebrows was deep. Her mouth was open as she slept. Her hands trembled under the blanket. She was weak, but she hadn't given up. She still looked like someone fighting to survive. When Lena opened her eyes, the first thing she saw was Caleb's face. "Am I still here?" she asked, her voice thin as a veil. "Yes," Caleb said. "And this place? It's the last place where you won't have to pretend to be someone else." Lena laughed, or thought she did, but her eyes filled with tears. "They said they'd take me back," Lena said. "Genevieve. She'd do anything for money. I was a person, Caleb, but to them, I was just a number. An investment. And you stole me." Caleb frowned. "I didn't steal you, Lena. I just saw what no one else did. What if they come after us?" Caleb looked away. He paused for a moment. Then he just said, "They already are." That sentence sent a chill through Lena. "What do you mean?" Caleb stood up. He took an old sack from behind a shelf. There was ammo inside. Rusty, but cleaned up. He scratched a notch on the edge of a map pinned to the wall. Quietly, "Someone was here last night," he said. "There were tracks by the barn. Not clear, but it had to be someone big. Their shoes left marks. Cheap, torn boots. Someone from outside. Someone who knows this place." Lena went quiet for a second. Then she swallowed. "Luther," she said. Caleb turned to her. "Who?" "Luther Cobb. He used to be Genevieve's silent fixer. He doesn't talk, doesn't ask, just brings people back. Or their bodies. Last time I saw him, he had a scar on his eye. I did it. While he was hitting me that night. With the glass I was holding." Caleb's gaze darkened. The silence grew sharper. "And now," he asked. "Now he's coming for me. And he won't just come with his bare hands." Caleb started cleaning his rifle. Every move was practiced. He wasn't a hunter. He was a soldier. The weight of the bullets reminded him of a war he'd tried to forget. Then he stopped, turned to Lena. "If you want to go," he said, "go now. I won't stop you." "And then what?" Lena asked. "I'll wake up behind some locked door again. Get slapped every time I cough. And then, another stranger will come and take me?" "No, not anymore." Her voice cracked, but she was determined. She stood up, pushing off the blanket with her hands. She was shaking, but she stood tall. "I don't want to run anymore, Caleb. This time, I want to stay. This time, I want to fight." Caleb bowed his head. For a moment, something showed on his face that had been missing for years. Respect. Something changed inside, right then. A curtain lifted, and the sneaky footsteps of truth, fate, and the past finally started to show themselves. Because now, they weren't just a man and a sick woman anymore. They were two people arming themselves with their ghosts. And their only shield against the darkness ahead, each other. Night fell much faster this time. It was as if the sky made a conscious decision. There would be no sun. Not today, because some things needed to be settled in the dark. Lena was sitting by the fire. Caleb had just come back in from outside. He was covered in snow up to his knees, and his expression was just as cold as the world outside. "The tracks. They go up the slope," he said. "But they don't come back. That means someone's still out there, waiting." Lena didn't answer. She wrapped her fingers around her warm cup, eyes fixed on the flames. But her mind was somewhere else. Somewhere in the past. By an old bed, in a locked room. Still sweating and shaking, hearing that voice echo. "Are you ready to serve?" Caleb looked at her. "Are you scared?" "No," Lena said. "But I remember." "That's worse." Silence settled over the room. Only the crackling wood could be heard. Then a noise. From outside. Caleb immediately reached for his rifle. But Lena moved first. For the first time. On her own. Willingly. She took the rifle in her hands. It was heavy. Her fingers shook, but she didn't let go. "Show me," she said. "How to hold it. I'm tired of living so things just happen to me. I want to be someone who does something, too." Something changed in Caleb's eyes. A memory deep inside him stirred, a decision being made again, just like in the war. But this time, not to take life, to protect it. He handed the rifle back to Lena. "Keep your shoulders straight. Left foot forward. And never take your eyes off the target." Lena didn't blink. She took aim. And she didn't pull the trigger. Not yet. But Caleb understood. He wasn't alone anymore. Right then, a silhouette appeared in the darkness outside the cabin. The footsteps were slow. Like the steps of an executioner who was sure of himself. Waiting. Savoring it. Someone who knew their target and wasn't in any rush. Caleb leaned against the wall by the door. "It's him," he said. "He's here." Lena looked at the floor for a second. Then she stood up. "I don't want you to hide me. This isn't a war, Lena. I know. But to me, everything is a war now. And for the first time, I have a side." The door knocked. But it wasn't a normal knock. There was a threat, a mockery, a kind of familiarity in it. Like it was saying, "You're going to open up. It's just a matter of when." Caleb stepped closer to the door. He didn't ask, "Who is it?" He didn't need to. He already knew. He just took a step forward. As his hand rested on the doorknob, his eyes turned to Lena. "Are you ready?" Lena bowed her head. "For the first time since I was born." "Yes." And at that moment, the door broke open. A shadow came flooding in. A long, dark coat like a rain slicker, a thick mustache, eyes full of savagery, Luther Cobb. He didn't have a gun, but his hands were more dangerous than any weapon. "What a sweet picture," he said. "The savior cowboy and the sick girl. But fairy tales don't pay." Genevieve says hello. Caleb was ready, but Luther was fast. In one move, he was behind Lena, his hands around her throat. "Move, and you won't hear her breathe again," he hissed, his voice dripping poison right into Lena's ear. But Lena wasn't the old Lena anymore. She stepped back on Luther's knee, jabbed her elbow into his side. Caleb moved. Luther stumbled. The rifle went off. The bullet lodged in the ceiling. But the attention had shifted. Lena fell, but got back up right away. Her vision was blurry, but her legs still worked. She grabbed a piece of firewood. And, this time, nobody fought for her. This time, it wasn't someone fighting for her, she fought for herself. As blood streamed down Luther's forehead, Caleb pinned him to the ground. For a moment, they locked eyes. It was like two different darknesses from the past clashing. And finally, one gave up. Luther collapsed. He was unconscious. Breathing. But nothing more. Silence returned. But this time, it wasn't from fear. It was from victory. Caleb threw the rifle aside. Turned to Lena. "I'll never leave you," he said. Lena closed her eyes. "I know. And I'm never leaving myself, either." Winter hadn't fully let go yet. But there was a hint of spring seeping up from the ground. Caleb was standing in front of the cabin, staring off into the distance. Lena was inside, reading a notebook she'd found at the bottom of an old chest. Genevieve's secret, and the bloody deed to Lena's past. The pages were worn, but one name was still clear. It was written thick and heavy. Lena Greaves, 0001. When Caleb came inside, Lena was still standing there. "I was the first," she said. "What do you mean?" Caleb asked. Genevieve didn't set up those houses, that business, on her own. She had supporters. Men. Powerful, wealthy, dirty hands. And every girl was really a contract. Just a code. I was the most valuable. Because my father was one of them. Caleb's eyes darkened. "Is that why she wants you? Not to take you back, but to remind you." Lena lowered her head. "I'm the last witness to that past, Caleb. But that past isn't who I am. Right then, a scream rang out from outside. "I need her, Caleb." "Not you, Genevieve." She was standing at the cabin's threshold, straight as a rod in a dark cloak, boots running to her ankles. Behind her, two men. They were armed. But there was something more dangerous than that. No regret in her eyes. "Lena," she said, her voice smooth as poison. "Come on. This isn't where you belong. Let me remind you who you really are." Lena looked back, met Caleb's gaze. His weapon was ready, but he wasn't touching it, because he couldn't win this fight for her. The time had come. Lena stepped forward. "Alone. You can't remind me who I am, Genevieve. Because I'm finally forgetting you." Genevieve laughed. "We're in your blood, girl. My hands are on your face. No matter what you do, you can't erase that. I didn't choose my blood, but I can choose my fate." Lena pulled out the notebook from her pocket. In front of everyone, she threw it to the ground and set it on fire. As the sparks rose to the sky, the arrogance on Genevieve's face cracked for the first time. "What have you done? Burning that list doesn't erase the past." "No," Lena said, "but it sets the future free." The men reached for their guns. Caleb didn't fire, because Lena was already walking. Just walking. Not toward the past, but over it. There was no fear in her eyes. Only resolve. Genevieve stepped back. Lena approached. Stopped right in front of her. "I burned the book where you wrote my life. Now I'm taking the pen." And she never bowed her head again. The men looked at each other, then quietly put their guns on the ground. Because some battles aren't won with weapons. Sometimes, just not looking away is enough. Genevieve turned around. That icy woman looked alone for the first time. Because real strength isn't in control. It's in letting go. And Lena hadn't let go. Not of herself. Days later, the front of the cabin was full of spring. The ground had warmed. Flowers were blooming. Caleb was on the porch, shaping a ring. He'd melted down an old coin. A single piece carrying all his fortune. Lena came to his side. She looked at the ring, stayed silent, then whispered, "I never used to know who I was. But now I do. I am my choice. And I choose you too." Caleb lowered his head. "You choose me." Lena shook her head. "No. Us." And then she slipped the ring onto her own finger. Without asking anyone. Belonging to no one. Just herself. Because this wasn't a rescue story. It was a story of standing up together. And sometimes the darkest shadow of the past gives rise to the brightest light.